different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. Now turn to Part 1. Part 1.
In a moment, you are going to hear a conversation between an officer and a man who has come to register himself. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hello. I'm wondering if I'm in the right place. I need to register as a resident.
Why, yes, you've come to the right queue. I'm Sergeant Mitchell. I'm pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you, sir. I'm Baylor, Conrad Baylor, to be exact.
Ah, I see. Well, Mr. Baylor, you are new in town, huh?
Yes, I just moved last week, on Wednesday last.
Ah, I see. Well, let me welcome you to Carlton. Where did you move from?
Thank you. I was residing in Stanford. Prior to that, I lived in Chesterville.
Oh, I have an aunt who lives in Chesterville. It's a lovely place. All those trees and the lake nearby. Sort of gives you the feeling of living in the country, doesn't it?
Yes, indeed it does. But unfortunately, I had to leave. Work, you know.
Work?
Yes. You see, I'm an engineer, chemical engineer, that is, and, well, I couldn't find work there. I did have a job on contract working in the water treatment facility, but my contract ended and I chose not to renew. And that was the only job that fit my qualifications.
Why not? It's such a lovely place.
I know, but I found it a little challenging, and I think I prefer the big city. More opportunity. Yes. I just started with Acme Health. I'll be working in their research facility.
That is exciting. Acme Health is a huge company. I'm sure you'll do very well with them.
Right. Hopefully I'll get a chance to work on one of those miracle drugs that they are developing.
One can only hope. So, did you move with your family?
Yes, we did. My wife and our 2 children.
Boys or girls?
I'm sorry?
Boys or girls? Your children, sir.
Oh, right. I have one of each.
Bless me, sir, you are lucky. You will need to register them. We could take care of that now, if you like.
That would be excellent. That would save me a lot of time. Thank you.
Very good. We'll take care of that after we get you registered. And, just so you know, registering the children is free.
Ah, thank you. And how much is the fee for registration?
That will be £50.
Oh, £50. That's a bit steep, don't you think?
Yes, I agree, but I don't make the rules, I'm afraid.
Oh, of course. Well, then how about my wife? Can I register her as well?
I'm afraid she'll need to come in person to register. It's procedure.
Yes, I should have known. I'll bring her tomorrow. Will that be all right?
That would be perfect. I could even make an appointment for her.
Really? I'd like that. What times are available?
I have an opening first thing in the morning.
That's wonderful. What time shall I bring her?
8 a.m.
I'll bring her in.
Very good. I'll put her name down. Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Excellent. So, what do I need to do to get registered?
Well, first, you'll need to pay the processing fee.
50 quid, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. £50 you'll have to pay, sir.
Very well. Shall we get started?
Why not? Let me get the form that must be filled out.
All right. Mm-hmm.
Now, you said your name was Baylor.
Yes, Conrad Baylor.
All right, Conrad. C-O-N-R-A-D, Baylor. Pardon me, sir, but how do you spell your last name?
As you said, my first name is spelled correctly, i.e. C-O-N-R-A-D, and my surname is B-A-Y-L-O-R.
B-A-Y-L-O-R. There, Baylor, I have it. All right, and your date of birth?
That's 25th December 1969.
25th December 1969? Ah, I see you're a Christmas baby. Double the presents.
Nothing quite like that, I'm afraid.
I'm sure. Now, your place of birth.
Oh, I was born in Kent. Grew up there, in fact.
Lovely city it is. Now, your address.
Well, it is only temporary. We're trying to buy a house. So right now we have a rental accommodation.
That's fine, sir.
Well, right now we are staying at 24 Hauser Street.
Is it spelt H-O-U-S-E-R?
No, it's actually spelled H-O-W-S-E-R.
Got it. All right. 24 Hauser. H-O-W-S-E-R Street. Thank you, sir. Now, do you have a contact number?
Yes, I have a mobile and a landline. Which would you like?
Both, please.
Very well. Well, my mobile is 07978 332 456.
07978 332 456, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Now, my landline is 020-5555-8202.
Let me see if I got it correctly. 020-5555-8202.
Yes, that's right.
Very good. And you mentioned your occupation. A chemist, right?
No, I'm a chemical engineer.
Ah, yes. Chemical engineer.
That's right. Do you need information regarding my employer?
No, that information isn't necessary, but I do need your last address.
Ah, yes, it was 3323 Bird Drive.
3323 Bird Drive. Right, and you said earlier you were living in Chesterville, or was that Stanford?
Well, I live in both, but this address is for Stanford.
Ah, I see. Stanford. And how do you wish to pay the fee?
Well, I don't have much cash. Is there some other way I can pay?
Well, we do take personal checks, but you can also pay using a debit or credit card.
I'll use my debit card. Here you go.
All right, let me give it a swipe, and we'll have you taken care of shortly.
That is the end of part 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to part 2. Part 2.
You will hear a tour guide from Ecological Park and Gardens introducing you to the site. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen and answer questions 11 to 15.
I'm delighted to welcome you all here to Ecological Park and Gardens. Let me tell you that our park is unique. It is a botanical garden featuring varieties of plants from all over the world and also has a family park and a cultural center. Ecological Park and Gardens is also associated with Gibson University's Ecological Sciences Research Division, and a lot of students from the uni conduct a number of research projects here. The park was established in 1988 to showcase the ecological and cultural diversity of our planet. It's also a family park that offers opportunities for both fun and learning. We open at 9 in the morning and close it at sunset 7 days a week, except for national holidays, and the cost of admission is fairly inexpensive. Adult tickets cost around £7, and for children between 7 to 12 years, the price is £3.50. Children who are 13 and older are considered for adult fare. We offer group discounts as well as school discounts. Tickets can be purchased here at the gates or online at the park's website, www.ecopark.org. Visiting the website is a great way to get to know the park prior to your visit. You'll learn about the park's history and mission, as well as all the different projects. One ongoing and important project that is currently taking place is in the fruits garden, in which researchers are crossing varieties of plums. The goal is to create a hardier plum that will thrive in the northern area of the country. The soil is perfect for plum trees, but they cannot withstand the frost that occurs there. The park occupies a total of 1,000 square acres, and the biggest feature of the park is Eco Lake, which occupies half the park. In the center of Eco Lake is the Eco Island, which is closed to the public, but is of special importance as many of the research projects conducted in the park take place there. Speaking of water bodies, the park has 2 other major water bodies as well as fountains and ponds in a number of gardens. It's important to note that all bodies of water, including fountains and ponds, are strictly off limits. If anyone is caught swimming or frolicking in any body of water, they will be asked to leave the park. Besides that rule, the other important rule is not to disturb the plants by touching or handling them.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
Now, although outside food is not allowed, if you are hungry or thirsty, there are food kiosks throughout the park, and there are a number of watchtowers, which you may ascend to experience the picturesque views. If you are driving, you may access entry into the park directly from the National Highway. You'll need to veer off onto the service road that parallels the highway. Parking is available in 2 car parks. The first is located at Gate 1 at the south end of the park, while the other is near Gate 3. There are a total of 6 gates. Access to Gates 1 through 5 are along the highway, whereas Gate 6 is located on road number 787. If you are entering through Gate 1, the path will lead you directly to the cactus garden. This garden features cacti and succulents from all over the world, but with special emphasis of those that are found in the American Southwest. Here you'll see tall Joshua trees, barrel cactus, and agave plants. The walkway circles the cactus garden and will lead you to Eco Lake. There you will come to Jetty 1, which is a small pathway that leads out a short distance into the lake. There are several jetties for you to explore. If you walk north from the cactus garden, you will pass the wildflower meadow, formal Garden 1, and come to the artist cottage. This is combination studio and gallery for artists to work and display their work. Behind the cottage is the musical fountain. If you take one of the two parallel paths from the cottage, they will pass by the rose and fruit gardens and eventually lead you to the tropical tree garden. Turn left and follow the path to your left, and you will pass the bamboo garden, followed by the gaming zone, which provides a variety of outdoor games for the family. Just beyond the gaming zone is the farm. Here, crops of all kinds are grown and is another important part of the park used for research. As we round the farm, turn left and follow the path. You may be hungry. If so, continue down the path and turn left, just past the butterfly garden, and you'll come to the food court. Once you're refreshed, you might want to go to the bazaar. It's located at Gate 6. There you can find all sorts of nice gifts for friends and family, as well as live plants. Now, one of the most interesting places you want to go to is the biodiversity zone. Here you will find all sorts of interesting plants from all over the world, but the biggest feature is Swan Marsh, which is in the southern portion of it. Besides intriguing water plants, you'll see a large host of birds, like swans and ducks, as they migrate.
That is the end of part 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to part 3. Part 3.
Listen to a part of a training session between a nursing instructor and a student nurse. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen and answer questions 21 to 25.
Hello, I'm happy to see you. I've been asked by your instructor, Mrs. Rogers, to go over the universal precautions with you.
Hello, I'm Jill. I've heard a lot about universal precautions, but I'm not sure what they are for.
That's why I'm meeting with you today. As a nurse, you'll be working directly with patients, particularly patients with infectious diseases. The universal precautions reduce your chances of having contact with any bodily fluids.
You mean like blood and such?
Exactly. Blood especially. You don't want to come into contact with other body fluids such as saliva, body wastes, or nasal discharges either. But if blood is mixed in it, then chances are you'd have to.
Oh, I see. But what do you mean by contact?
That's a good question. Basically, it means physical contact. So, you don't want to directly touch blood with your bare finger, for instance.
Oh, okay. So that's why we wear gloves.
Yes, but that's just one part of it. Do you have any ideas as to what the universal precautions entail?
Well, I imagine they involve washing our hands before and after meeting with a patient. Mrs. Rogers is very strict with that.
Yes, that's right, but there's more to it. I'm going to discuss hand washing shortly, but I want to focus on those precautions which you can take when interacting with a patient.
Okay.
We'll start with gloves. Gloves protect your hands because they prevent your hands from coming into contact with bodily fluids, right?
Yes, that's right.
So we can say that gloves act as a barrier between you and the body fluids. So when interacting with patients, you should consider, depending on the situation, using certain items that will act as a barrier.
You mean like masks and gowns? I thought those were to protect the patient.
That's true, but they're also meant to protect you. Let's start with gloves. You should always wear them when touching blood or body fluids, as well as contaminated items such as soiled clothing and instruments. Now, You mentioned gowns.
Yes, they protect clothing, right?
Indeed they do. And you want to wear a clean, non-sterile gown in case there's likely to be splashes or sprays of blood and other body fluids. The gown is intended to protect clothing. So, you're correct. What else?
I'm not sure. I know surgeons wear masks while operating on patients.
That's right. But you should also consider not just wearing masks, but eye protection or a face shield, as splashes or sprays of blood and other body fluids can be expected. The masks protect you from germs entering your body through your nose and mouth.
Okay, so depending on the situation, I should use some type of universal precautions then.
That's right. Very good.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
Now, let's talk about washing hands or scrubbing. It's very important. Do you have any idea why?
It's the same reason we wash our hands before handling food and eating.
Yes, that's true, but that's not the reason. The reason why we wash our hands is to prevent the spread of diseases.
But washing hands also helps in preventing us catch a disease, right?
That's right. So, if a patient with the flu sneezed and some drops landed on your hand, you could get the flu if you were to wipe your nose after leaving the patient. So, you want to wash your hands before and after meeting a patient. Now, the proper way to wash your hands is this. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. First, take a clean paper towel and then open the tap. You want to use warm water as most germs don't like it.
What if they don't have warm water?
Cold water will always work in a pinch. The next step is to wet your hands and your lower arms under the water for about 20 to 30 seconds. You want to make sure they get fully immersed.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you want to get a good amount of soap in the palm of your hands and then rub the soap over your hands and arms. Spend time also rubbing it between your fingers.
About how long would I need to scrub?
About 3 to 5 minutes. You basically want to scrub your skin with the soap. Also, you want to make sure that you get soap under your fingernails by scratching them lightly against your palms.
Okay, what if I'm wearing rings?
Those you should remove and wash thoroughly as well. Now, the next step is to rinse, and you want to spend about 30 seconds rinsing your hands and arms. This will flush the soap and any germs off your skin.
I've seen people shake their hands when they are done to remove water.
I don't recommend it. What you do to dry is to get paper towels and dry your hands. Wipe downwards towards your fingers. When you're finished, use your paper towels to turn off the tap.
That sounds simple enough.
Good. Are you willing to try it out?
Sure.
That is the end of part 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to part 4. Part 4.
You will hear a lecture about space weather. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
We have already had some discussions about particles coming off the sun, either steadily as in the solar wind, or in great bursts such as coronal mass ejections, or CME. These will reach the Earth and interact with the Earth's magnetic field. Well, this is what we call space weather, and many scientists have attempted to predict this weather, just like meteorologists try to predict weather on Earth. Interesting, isn't it? Now, it's important to be able to, predict space weather because when it becomes, well, stormy, it can create a lot of havoc here on Earth and for the spacecraft. You know, with thousands of satellites in orbit, astronauts taking up long-term residence in the International Space Station, millions of people using cell phones, GPS, and wireless communication, and nearly everyone relying on the availability of dependable electrical power, governments are now making major initiatives in learning how to predict when solar storms will occur and how strongly they will affect Earth. This is important because there are three types of solar phenomena: coronal holes, solar flares, and CMEs. And these three phenomena account for most of the space weather we experience. We'll start with coronal holes. Now, how they affect space weather is that they allow the solar wind to flow freely away from the sun. When the solar wind reaches Earth, it causes Earth's magnetic field to contract and then expand after the solar wind passes by. These changes usually cause mild electromagnetic disturbances, which can affect wireless communication and power transmissions. Now, let's consider solar flares. These shower the Earth's upper atmosphere with X-rays, energetic particles, and intense ultraviolet radiation. The X-rays and ultraviolet radiation can ionize atoms in Earth's upper atmosphere. They can also lead to a buildup of a static electric charge on the surface of a spacecraft. So when this static charge discharges, it can damage the electronics on board. It's the same process where you receive a shock from a metal object after walking across a carpet in stocking feet. You get a shock. But solar flares are by far tame when compared to coronal mass ejections. Now, what a CME is? It's an erupting bubble of tens of millions of tons of gas blown away from the sun into space. When this bubble reaches Earth a few days after leaving the sun, it heats the part of the atmosphere that expands the upper layer of the atmosphere further out into space. Now, for spacecraft, this is dangerous because it increases the friction between the atmosphere and the spacecraft. So if this happens, a satellite is likely to be drawn to a lower altitude. Now, besides changing the orbits of satellites, CMEs can also disrupt signals sent by them. For example, the accuracy of GPS positions is affected. If we consider those required for aircraft, flight control operators must know a plane's position to within 160 feet. If disruption to GPS is caused by a solar flare, then flights may have to be restricted for several minutes, and in some cases, days. Another problem is that people get exposed to increased amounts of radiation. This can happen to people on Earth, but also those who travel in high-flying airplanes, and of course astronauts. Speaking of astronauts, there is a limit to the amount of radiation to which the astronauts can be exposed to during their career. So, if a very ill-timed solar flare happens, it could end the astronaut's career because he or she may reach or exceed his or her lifetime limit. For instance, for Russian cosmonauts aboard the Mir space station, a typical daily dose of radiation was equivalent to 8 chest X-rays. As you may have guessed, this can also be a major challenge when we start planning trips to other planets like Mars. So if scientists can devise a way of predicting solar storms, we might be able to minimize their effects. For example, power networks could run at less than full capacity. Communication networks could be prepared for malfunctions and initiate backup plans. Astronauts could avoid spacewalks during solar storms. So there is a big push to discover ways to predict where and when solar storms will occur, as well as their severity. One strategy that is being used is to relate changes in the appearance of small active regions and changes in the magnetic fields on the sun to previous eruptions. However, currently, the only warning we have is from actually seeing CMEs and flares occur. And since a CME travels outward at about 500 kilometers per second and reaches Earth in a matter of days, we do have several days of warning. But even with this warning, we are clueless about the severity. You see, the severity depends on several factors, particularly its source on the sun and how it is oriented to the Earth's magnetic field. So if they are directly aligned or at an angle to Earth, then they can allow us to determine how bad the solar storm will be. Currently, space weather predictions are now available online to scientists and the public. Outlooks are given a week ahead, and bulletins are issued when there is an event that is likely to be of interest to the public, along with warning letters when an event is imminent or already underway.
That is the end of part 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.